The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Wrestling to the Max Smackdown Review.
Okay, so normally we do these introductions and we say hi to everybody, and hi everybody, how are you doing? But I have a more important question for you.
Okay.
Do you watch Shimmer?
No.
You should. Melissa still looks amazing despite having been in wrestling for 20 years.
Fair enough. There's a lot of wrestling I should be watching, but I'm so far behind on stuff already. I'm trying to keep up on New Japan, and I'm already almost a week behind again. And yeah.
Well, that's because there's been like 1,437 Road to Dontaku shows.
I know this.
Like, not every house show needs to be broadcast.
I know this.
Good evening, afternoon, morning, whenever you're listening. This is your Wrestling to the Max Smackdown live review for April 30th. Today's May 1st. Yes, we're recording this on Wednesday. Stuff happens. Cut us some slack. I'm your host. My name is Harry Broadhurst. Joining me at this time, the George Steinbrenner to my Ted Turner, Brandon Biskobing.
My team's better.
No, they're not. They've just been around longer.
27 championships.
Yeah, most of those Atlanta wasn't in Major League Baseball for.
Yes, they were. Atlanta's been around since the 30s.
Atlanta's been around since the 60s, sir.
I'm talking about the Braves' history just in general, not just in Atlanta.
Yeah, but we only claimed the Atlanta years because that's when we got good. Okay, there was that whole Hank Aaron thing back in like the 70s, the 60s as well. He was pretty cool. 60s and 70s as well. He was pretty cool. But I'm more of an Atlanta era Braves fan.
Fair enough.
Anywho, and this is the next episode of the Blue Brand on the way to the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, of which we find out the participants in the Money in the Bank matches for the Blue Brand to go up against the four that have already been announced for the respective matches from Raw. Shall we run down who the four people from Raw are in each match before we talk about who the four people are from SmackDown?
Sure. Real quick, since I asked Cedric this when we were doing the Raw review last week, or earlier, yesterday. Do you like how they just announced them,
No.
or would you have liked to see some qualifying matches?
No, Money in the Bank is for an opportunity at a future heavyweight title opportunity. You should have to earn your way into that match. It shouldn't just be indiscriminately handed out.
Agreed. And also the fact that they have 3 weeks still left.
So now we're just going to see a bunch of them pairing off in tag team matches and fatal four-ways against each other. Rather than keeping them separated, like the Offspring would tell you, you got to keep them separated.
Whose theme was that in ECW?
Raven.
There we go. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's talk the men's Money in the Bank match from Raw. It is Drew McIntyre, Braun Strowman. Hold on, I'm drawing a blank. Don't tell me. Ricochet and Baron Corbin. I realize drawing a blank on Baron Corbin's not really a surprise.
I was just gonna say, are you really drawing a blank on Ricochet?
It's not like he has a chance in hell of winning the damn match.
I'll give you that.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I like Ricochet, but if you think Ricochet's WWE Heavyweight Championship material, you're smoking what Matt Riddle's smoking. Allegedly. I like Ricochet. I think he could eventually get there. I mean, Rey Mysterio proved that you don't have to be some 6'5", 260-pound to be champion. And I would say Ricochet's a much better high flyer than Rey ever was.
Oh, yeah.
That being said, Ricochet is nowhere near as connected to the fans as Rey is.
That's true.
This actually leads me to a question. I asked this to the guys on the Raw Reaction on Monday night, which we just celebrated our 5th anniversary of, by the way.
Well done.
My question was with regards to the Money in the Bank match. Do you think the poster that got leaked is going to negatively affect people going into this Money in the Bank match? Because if you look at that poster, that alleged match graphic that got leaked, and see what could have been compared to what will be for this match.
I forget who was in that.
Cesaro, Ray. Pretty much the same 4 from SmackDown. Well, with Lars Sullivan, too.
Yeah, I mean, the only person that I feel the fans may try more so to try to get behind and, like, basically force him to the top now. But, I mean, we've seen how that's gone over the past 5 years, and, you know, it hasn't turned out very well. The only person that I could see really fans getting annoyed at him not being in it is Cesaro.
You see, my thing with it is Strowman's a made main eventer, allegedly. I mean, they've had so many stops and starts with the guy that, realistically, if he ever does become champion at this point, it'll be a small miracle.
Agreed.
Not Corbin. McIntyre is the main eventer in waiting, where literally the second they say this guy is the main eventer now, the rest of the fans will be like, okay, we accept this.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need this match. Strowman in as the defending champion. All right, I guess I can cut some latitude there. McIntyre doesn't need to be in this match. McIntyre arguably should have been Seth's first challenger in order to avoid the face-face matchup that they're doing with Seth and AJ.
True.
Which was another reason that McIntyre should have beat Roman at WrestleMania. Anyway, let's talk about SmackDown and the 4 men added to the men's Money in the Bank ladder match on SmackDown. They are Mustafa Ali, Finn Balor, Andrade, no longer Cien Almas, and Randy Orton. How does Randy get to keep 2 names and Andrade and Mustafa both have to give up theirs?
Because you need to have no fewer than, like, 5 syllables or 4 syllables in your name in order to keep it.
Is it like a seniority thing? It's because he's been here since 2002. Is that why he gets to keep it? Like, what gives?
Apparently, based on what I read a while back, when one of the it might have been when Almas got changed, but the supposed logic behind it is for chants and stuff. They want guys to have like a 3 or 2 syllable name so that it can be easily chanted.
That seriously can't be accurate, because if it is, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
I mean, this is WWE we're talking about, so I would not at all. It would not surprise me whatsoever.
All right, so overall, what do you think of the 4 participants from the SmackDown side of the men's Money in the Bank ladder match?
I mean, I like them for the most part. You know, Almas, Balor, and who was the third non-Orin guy?
Ali.
Oh, and Ali. All 3 of those guys, you know, it works for them. They can use this as a way to build themselves up even more. But Orin is definitely the odd man out.
Real quick, I'm going to disagree with that, because I think Orton's the kind of guy that was put into this match to help keep it together, because he's a veteran of these Money in the Bank ladder.
True. But, I mean, you do have, Braun has been just in one.
Wait. Are you telling me you trust Braun to lead a match? Because I don't trust him as far as
True. I'll give you that. Yeah, you're probably right that Orton is in there just kind of as a veteran presence.
I don't think Orton's going to win it. I think they'll tease an Orton victory at some point during the course of the match, but I don't think he'll win it. Honestly, you know who my favorite to win it is?
We're probably on what?
It's Andrade.
Yeah, and here I came up with an interesting idea, and I want to see what you think about this, because I talked about it with Cedric, and he said it wouldn't have the same impact as it going the other way around, which I agree with. But to further solidify his just uber heel status, and to see what the crowd reaction would be to it. Reverse Carmella.
Have Zelina go up the ladder and grab the briefcase? Yep. I don't see it. And the reason I say that is because much the same way I think the fans' negative reaction towards the Ellsworth thing with Carmella affected the viewpoint of Carmella as Miss Money in the Bank, I don't think that people would take Andrade serious as a credible challenger.
But that's the whole point. That would be the whole point.
You can't do that with this, though. Andrade needs that extra bump to get him to that next level.
But it would solidify that whole concept of he is the heel that will do whatever it takes to get to where he wants to get.
I'm not disagreeing that it's a viable possibility. I just personally don't see it.
I could totally, especially with how much they allow her to do, I could totally see them doing that.
I could see it as a false finish and having her get knocked off the ladder by somebody.
No,
the problem is
this is WWE in 2019. No way in hell that that's happening.
Well, let's think here. Ricochet, Baron, McIntyre, Braun. Yeah, I guess there's really no other women to counterbalance Zelina in this match, are there?
Nope.
I mean, it's something that we'll kind of have to wait and see about. We'll come back to this a little bit later on when we actually talk about SmackDown itself, because these four men are involved in the Teddy Long special. It's a tag match.
Player.
A little bit later on in the show. However, there's another Money in the Bank ladder match to talk about beforehand, and that is the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. Natalya, Dana Brooke. What?
Well, I mean, it fits her whole new, I'm going to build myself back up character.
Naomi and Alexa Bliss for Raw. Carmella, Bayley, Ember Moon, and Mandy Rose in place of Sonya Deville for SmackDown. I gotta say, it's actually a pretty interesting little lineup here. I don't think there's any question that if Sasha hadn't taken her ball and gone home, that she would have Dana's spot in this match.
Probably, yeah.
At this point,
either that or Alexa's spot.
At this point, I'm almost thinking they're better off for it, because this way they don't have to worry about anybody whining and complaining about creative and throwing a tantrum on the locker room floor.
No comment.
Nothing?
Nope.
Nothing? Really?
Nope.
What do you make of the 8 women in Miss Money in the Bank?
This one feels much less cut and dry. I'm sure that WWE will probably end up swerving us and giving us either Drew or Baron again or Braun again, probably. But the men's Money in the Bank feels like, this is the way that they're gonna give Fox what they want. But in terms of the women, I can't really see. I don't really know who it could be. There's a lot of interesting options.
My other question is, are they going to allow the winner of Miss Money in the Bank and Mr. Money in the Bank to cross brands to cash in? Because they didn't explicitly state that it had to be for the title, the championship of their particular brand.
At this point, probably, because the brand split is pretty much a joke at this point.
Well, with the dual-branded pay-per-views, it would make sense to me, at least, that you would have some cross-promotional with teasing the briefcase. What's up, Wilford? Welcome to the show, bud.
Proceed.
Are we paused, or are we still going?
No, we're still going.
Okay, I said hi to Wilford, and then you never answered my question.
What was your last question?
I said, but would you be surprised with them having the dual-branded pay-per-views now, of them using this as a storyline option? And
no, not at all.
let's not forget that one of the original uses of Money in the Bank as well was when Edge won it off of Mr. Kennedy and then won the title off of Taker when both Kennedy and Taker got hurt.
True.
So,
I mean,
so an injury could very easily change whatever plans that they may have laid for Mr. and Mrs. Money in the Bank.
True. I would not at all be surprised if they did allow them to do whatever they wanted to, because it has been so fluid anyway recently. So, I wouldn't be surprised at anything at this point that WWE did.
I feel like Braun would go from being one of the bigger fan favorites in the company to one of the biggest heels if he won Money in the Bank and then just beat up Kofi and took his title.
Oh, definitely. I mean, whoever ends up taking the title from Kofi is automatically going to become like one of the biggest heels in the company.
A lot of people were speculating that's why Lesnar was going to SmackDown in order to take the belt off of Kofi, and because Fox apparently wanted Lesnar, that obviously didn't happen at the Superstar shakeup.
It could still happen though.
There's still plenty of time. I mean, isn't there supposed to be another shakeup after SummerSlam as well? Like, don't they do one after SummerSlam usually too?
Yes, and plus, since Lesnar supposedly left, you would think that he's basically a free agent at this point. They could very easily, once he ends up coming back, which is going to be sooner rather than later, apparently now, that they just put him on SmackDown instead.
We're approximately 20 minutes into the show. What do you say we actually talk about SmackDown itself?
Let's do it.
Just tossing it out there. We figured we'd go over the Money in the Bank participants first, so that way we didn't have to pause and do them individually during the show.
Fair enough.
We'll still mention it where it comes in the show, but we will go ahead and discuss that. We've discussed that enough in and of itself. I think we're good. All right.
Yep.
The show opens with Michael Cole, because when I think SmackDown nowadays, I think Michael Cole. And he brings out the current reigning and defending WWE Heavyweight Champion, Kofi Kingston. Kofi comes out, and they run over what Kofi's gone through over the course of the last couple of weeks before finally getting to what happened last Tuesday night, where Kevin Owens turned on the New Day and laid out Xavier Woods with a powerbomb across the ring apron that was meant for Kofi Kingston, but that Xavier Woods saved Kofi from. Owens eventually comes out to interrupt Kofi. However, as Owens is speaking, Xavier Woods tries to jump him from behind, which goes as well as an attempted Xavier Woods beatdown would go in 2019 WWE, where Owens leaves Xavier laying with a super kick before Kofi chases him off. I gotta say, it kind of felt flat to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that it's necessarily that Kofi is a bad champion. It's that Kofi doesn't have the right attitude as champion. He's still that happy-go-lucky, plucky, happy to be here babyface.
True.
I think the title in some way has to change you, and to Kofi it hasn't, and he doesn't come across as serious enough to be the WWE champion. I like what Kofi's done. I respect everything Kofi's done in his 11-year career in the WWE, but Owens raises a point that there were a lot of people who do not believe that Kofi is a legitimate long-term candidate to be WWE champion. And frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if he is merely a transitional champion, sending the belt over to Owens at Money in the Bank.
We'll have to wait and see. The issue that I see, though, like we talked about before, is whoever does end up beating Kofi is going to become the biggest heel in the company. This very much, and
more than
what?
Which I think isn't a moniker that Kevin Owens is more than capable of portraying.
Oh, definitely. But, I mean, this is to Daniel Bryan level of, people were so happy to see him win the title, and now they don't want him to lose it. The one thing that's weird, how long is it going to take us for them to not call Kofi the new champion?
Until he actually has a title defense, because he hasn't had one yet.
Fair enough. Because it's been over a month, and or not quite over a month, but almost a month. And Cole was out there still saying he's the new WWE champion.
Well, you got to think this is the first time he's appearing in all of these respective towns as champion, too.
True.
Like, that's an old house show model of introducing the champion as the new champion to everybody in order to pop the hometown crowd of getting to see a new champion for the first time.
Fair enough.
We officially make the announcement for Bayley and Money in the Bank here. We've already discussed all of the women's Money in the Bank ladder match participants. Rewind the show about 15 minutes. You'll find it there. Bayley goes non-title with Becky Lynch in a match scheduled for one fall.
One fall.
I almost missed it there, but I'll circle it back around. Nobody circles the wagons quite like a Buffalo Bills fan.
Wrong show.
The kickoff, available, well, most Wednesday nights at 10 o'clock live, posted around midnight here on the W2M Network. Shill! Anyway, Becky Lynch and Bayley go 8 minutes and 40 seconds, approximately 5.5 of which was shown when you factor in the commercial break, although it was a split-screen commercial, so you could kind of see what was happening, but once the audio goes out on the show, I start doing other stuff until the audio comes back, and then I pay attention. I like my commercial breaks. They give me a chance to get a drink, use the restroom, make a sandwich. Yep. Anyway, Bayley goes down via submission once again, having tapped out to the figure 8 last week. She taps out to the disarmor this week. Normally, I would complain about Bayley not looking so great, but this is Charlotte Flair, the 8-time champion, and the reigning defending 2 champion, Becky 2 belts, the man, the woman. Would she be the woo man as well? Anyway, regardless, it's the defending SmackDown and Raw Women's Champion, so I'm not going to complain too much about Bayley losing a non-title match here.
Yeah.
I feel like Money in the Bank could be something that's used to give Bayley an edge.
Yeah, I agree.
I feel like you could see Bayley having more of like a vicious side during the course of Money in the Bank. And then what you could almost do is, if you really wanted to push the envelope further with Becky and Bayley, have Becky retain against Charlotte at Money in the Bank, and then have Bayley come out and beat her ass post-match and attack her with the briefcase like Alexa did Ronda Rousey and Nia Jax last year.
That's true. That could be a good way. Yeah, I could see that.
Post-match, Charlotte wins, lol. Nailing a big boot on Becky and then posting Bayley before posing in the ring with. See, all of this stuff with Charlotte getting the better of Becky tells me that Becky's retaining on the 19th.
Which because I don't think they're going to have Becky beat Becky 2 belts for very long. So either A, that means she's losing to Lacey Evans, which I would say is a very bad move. She's getting cashed in by someone.
Given that Becky's home brand would be Raw, I think it's more likely that she retains the SmackDown, the Raw title coming out of Money in the Bank than the SmackDown one.
Oh, I agree. That was my thought initially too.
All right, moving on. It's in-ring promo time for the Hardy Boys, and apparently nobody has to shave anybody's back in this segment, so that's a bonus.
Yes.
Unfortunately, what we do find out is that Jeff has blown out his knee once again. They don't specifically state as much, but if you've followed the online news, followed the rumor well and stuff, you know that at a house show last weekend, Jeff Hardy injured himself on a Saturday night, ended up not working the show on Sunday. Matt teamed with Kofi in a tag match against Daniel Bryan and couldn't have been because Bryan's been out since May.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, wait, Bryan's back?
Oh, maybe Owens and Rowan?
Maybe.
Because that would make more sense. So either way, Matt was involved in a tag match with Kofi Kingston as his partner, whereas Jeff Hardy's kind of been on the shelf here. They attribute the injury to Lars Sullivan and the freak accident from 2 weeks ago on SmackDown, which I thought was nice in order to give Lars kind of a rub.
Mm-hmm.
Sullivan comes out now, and Matt Hardy tries to fight him off like his name is Brock Lesnar in 2002. It works out as well for Matt Hardy as it did for Matt Hardy against Brock Lesnar in 2002. R-Truth attempts to make the save, and apparently he's Jeff Hardy with Brock Lesnar in 2002 because it doesn't work out so well for him either. Truth tries to thwack Lars Sullivan with a chair. Lars hits him with no sell and proceeds to lay Truth out with the Liger Bomb once again. I stand by my statement. I think we're getting Lars and Truth in the pre-show match for Money in the Bank.
Definitely.
Rather or not anybody's going to care about anything that Truth does in that match is completely irrelevant at this point because it's just going to be there to make Sullivan look like a monster.
Yep.
But at this point, let's be honest here. Yes or no? Can Lars Sullivan still be credible if Truth gets any offense in on him at the pay-per-view?
I mean, if it's one of those things where he's attempting to get offense and it's like pretty much like a gnat, trying to attack you, and he's just swatting him off, then he's still credible. But if Truth actually gets him down, then that would not look good.
Like, I get that you're trying to build up Sullivan as this monster, but at the same time here, Truth's been around with the company and within wrestling now for 2.5 decades. You'd think you'd at least give him something to look somewhat credible going into a potential pay-per-view match, or at least a pre-show match.
But at the same time, they haven't really, in terms of within kayfabe, they haven't really played into that with Truth, and they've basically made him look like a complete joke and like that he's completely oblivious and whatnot with his character. I mean, hell, they said that he was watching John Cena as a kid when he's been wrestling longer than Cena. So, I mean, do you really think that they pay attention to reality?
Truth's reality is different than most, but I think in terms of credibility with regards to Sullivan, if Truth gets any kind of sustained offense on him at Money in the Bank in the pre-show, if that match does happen, it's a disservice to Lars Sullivan's credibility. All right. Our next contest, scheduled for one fall, is Asuka and Kairi Sane taking on Already in Ring A and Already in Ring B. I didn't catch their names, and frankly, 2 minutes later, it really doesn't matter. Well, as I said, 2 minutes later, it really didn't matter.
The aerial look-alike.
I actually did find out who she was. One of my Facebook friends is friends with her, so they tagged her in the post. I don't remember her name, unfortunately, but I did find out who she was. Anyway,
that was all that Tori said about her, was that she was an aerial look-alike.
The only thing missing was her partner singing "Under the Sea, Under the Sea, Under the Sea."
Pretty much.
Everything's better down where it's wetter. Take it from me. My Little Mermaid impression has gone on longer than this match did.
Yeah.
So apparently we're looking at Asuka and Kairi Sane taking on the Iconics for the women's tag team titles at Money in the Bank. I'm a little surprised that they're not going with the triple threat, but with them moving Mandy Rose into the Money in the Bank ladder match, they kind of can't go with the triple threat. So I guess I'm okay with it here.
I'm honestly surprised, even if they didn't go with the triple threat, I'm honestly surprised that Mandy and Sonya didn't figure out a way to at least get a number one contenders match where they could have lost and then Mandy could have gone to Money in the Bank, but at least have that possibility.
See, I think I'm okay with that though, because that keeps the stench of the loss off of the number one off of the Money in the Bank match.
True.
The same way that we said that we felt that there should have been qualifying matches to determine who got into the match. Letting in somebody who loses an opportunity for a different match at the pay-per-view into Money in the Bank does the Money in the Bank match a disservice as well.
True, but, I mean, we've seen them do it with other matches plenty of times.
All right, hold on. I have to get in touch with my inner Michael Cole. You ready?
Yep.
It's the big dog! I feel so dirty. I need a shower. You take over.
So yeah, Reigns comes out.
All right, I'm good.
Okay. you can
Roman
talk
comes
about
out
what
and
he
basically
says.
says that,
You can talk about what he says.
Reigns comes out and says that he did what he did to Vince McMahon last week to make an impression now that he's over on SmackDown, saying that he's still the big dog and that SmackDown is his yard now. Shane McMahon interrupts, and after having a proper introduction given by Greg Hamilton, points out that while it may be Roman's yard, the McMahons own the land, which I thought was actually a nice line.
Mm-hmm.
Shane then introduces Roman's opponents for tonight. The B Team.
B team, go, go, go.
Weren't they baby faces the last time we saw them?
Yes, but it doesn't matter.
I
Alignments
guess.
can change at a moment's notice, just as brands can.
We also get a special guest ringside enforcer for this match. Elias's music makes everything better.
It does.
I don't mean his guitar playing. I mean his actual ring
Yes.
entrance music. It's really good once you get a chance to listen to it.
Yes. Which is very rare nowadays.
This is true. Our third contest of the evening, scheduled for one fall, is a handicap match, which is kind of like a tag match.
Player.
Thank you. We're hitting all the high spots tonight. Yep. Screw it.
All we need is for someone to do a Uranagi.
Wait a minute. I'm being told I'm not allowed to say Balls Mahoney on this episode. I cannot say Balls Mahoney on this. God dang it. There you have it. Can't say it. All right. Samoa Joe's on Raw now. There are no Noggies.
Damn it.
I know. We've lost our Noggy. I feel very... And our Miyagi, for that matter.
That is true.
Check out Cobra Kai on YouTube TV. All right, anyway.
I still need to re-up my YouTube Red account so that I can watch Season 2.
Oh, you know what's actually going to be big in my household soon? Starting next week? Season 4 of Lucifer on Netflix.
Ah, okay. I need to go on YouTube and see if I can find that weird mixed tag match that they apparently did with Cobra Kai.
I don't even want to know. All right, let's get back to
WWE teamed up with Cobra Kai and Xavier was in, or I think it was Xavier, Kofi, and a few other people were I don't even know what they were doing. It was just a poster I saw online.
Probably something for Up, Down, Down.
Maybe.
If I had to venture a guess, that would be the place where I would look.
Because
I know Xavier and I know Xavier at least, and a couple of other of the SmackDown people were on Double Dare this past week too.
Yes.
Not this week, but last week, which is something I want to go back and watch.
Mm-hmm.
But all right, let's get back to the show. This tells you how little we care about a B Team handicap match.
I mean, we all knew what was gonna happen.
Elias tries to turn the tables. It doesn't really work. The big dog stands tall. Or as we used to put it when it was Cena having this kind of booking, Roman wins, lol.
Is Vince in your headset tonight or something?
Yes, he's yelling at me the same way he does Michael Cole on Monday Night Raw. I said put him over, pal.
I told you to say big dog 5,000 times, damn it.
On a related note, Roman Reigns, huge. All right. I will say it was nice to see Curtis bust out the perfect plex.
Oh, yes.
Does Curtis actually even have a finisher now anymore? Because the dude's been such a super jobber recently that I forget what his singles finishing move is. I think it's that snap swinging face buster.
I thought he was using the perfect plex for a while.
He did briefly back when he did back when he was doing the tribute to Hennig, but not so much as a singles. Not so much when he's been in a tag team with Bo Dallas. Huh. I mean, Bo still has that Bo dog, which you almost never see anymore either. Regardless, it's a Superman punch and a spear to Curtis Axel that spells curtains at 11 minutes and 40 seconds. About 8 minutes of which was shown, and about 6 of that was too long.
Yeah, really. I mean, it was pretty much just Elias trying to interfere to allow the B team to win and Roman having to overcome the odds, which everyone knew he was going to.
I like Bo and Curtis more than most people. I actually think that they could be capable. I actually think that they could be capable hands in what is now a depleted SmackDown tag team division.
I mean, yeah, with how few teams there are on SmackDown, you could see them getting a legit run. Do I think it'll happen? Probably not, but...
However, the problem with that is this now. is that you've had them made to look inept against one person. Now what happens when they have to be in a tag match? Playa.
It's not even worth it at this point. Teddy Long is probably ashamed of how WWE is now.
He's rolling over in his grave, and he's not even dead yet. That's right. We can hit all the cliches on this show. Don't you doubt us. All right, moving on. We replay the episode of Firefly Funhouse from Monday Night Raw.
Shall we sing it?
What is it? We're so glad that you're our friend,
and we hope this friendship that will never ever end.
Hope this is a friendship that will never ever end. Okay, well, regardless, we finally meet Ramblin' Rabbit, and then
which he looked more like Stoner Rabbit.
He looked like Riddle Rabbit. Again, our second reference to Matt Riddle on this episode of SmackDown Live here on the W2M Network, online at W2Mnet.com. Shill! Anywho. Compared to last week's, the first episode here, do you kind of see where they're going with this now? Because they kind of made it a little bit more blatant on this episode of the Firefly Funhouse, specifically in the fact that the thing that Bray Wyatt painted was the burning house of Sister Abigail.
I definitely see where they're trying to go with this. The big thing for me is going to be, for one, how long can they keep this going? And for two, how does it translate to once they do finally bring him out into the arena and whatnot? On its own, it's great. I wasn't that as high on it last week. But this week, after seeing a second one and everything, it's just really funny, and it's one of those fun promo, or it's one of those fun segments, but also it leaves you hanging where, like, you don't know what's going to happen next, and you want to see where it goes from here.
Yeah, I think that's the added benefit here, is that it kind of leaves you wondering what's next. Like, is there a way to follow up on this? Is there something else about this character that we're not quite perceiving yet that should be obvious to us? To me, the obvious thought to me here, sorry, I can't English today, apparently. It's been a long day. The obvious train of thought that goes through my mind here is that this is a delusional Bray Wyatt having, like, hallucinations, and he's envisioning himself as something that he's not, and that it's going to end up, and I said this when the character was originally going to debut, that this was the way to go with it, that when he comes back, it'll be more along the lines of the Waylon Mercy character, of he's all nice and chummy to everybody until the bell rings, and then he beats everyone's ass.
I'd be cool with seeing that.
And then once the bell rings a second time to end the match,
then he goes back to being all happy.
Goes back into Firefly Funhouse Bray rather than Eater of Worlds Bray.
Now the big question is, and which would be interesting, is does he keep his old theme, or do we get the Firefly Funhouse theme as his entrance?
I don't know if you can do an extended version of the Firefly Funhouse theme, though. It's just the poppity nature of it. I don't think it translates well to entrance music.
True.
I think eventually we kind of have to see Wyatt snap in one of these vignettes, and then, like, they start playing the old theme music. Our main event, scheduled for one fall, is the Teddy Long special. It's a tag match.
Playa.
With the participants of the Money in the Bank match, as we announced earlier, teaming up against each other. Andrade, don't call him Cien Almas, teams with Randy Orton. I get to keep all my names because fuck you, that's why. Taking on no longer Mustafa Ali. And hey, I still have both of my names. Finn Balor. Have you noticed the paint by numbers booking from here in Raw, where it's the 4 men in the Money in the Bank match, in tag matches on both shows.
Mm-hmm.
That is some absolutely wonderful creativity there, creative. No wonder R.D. Evans quit.
I mean, come on. This has been going on for years now where it's so transparent.
No, I get that it's like there and it's obvious, but come on, road less traveled every now and then. Work with me, people. Regardless,
hopefully things will change come October and not because of Fox.
You assume that AEW gets any kind of an actual television deal that's a threat to the WWE.
Rumors would say otherwise.
Rumors would say that they're also paying for that television time and therefore not a threat.
But still, if the ratings are good, that's still a threat.
Okay. If they can get to the point that TNT actually invests money in the company, then maybe Vince starts to be worried. Until then, Vince ain't sweating the damn thing. I guarantee it. Regardless, the tag team match goes 7 minutes. There's a brief commercial break at the start. However, once we come back, it's right into the finish because apparently we're short on time for matches. We had to do replays and backstage segments and all kinds of other bits and pieces. In the end, Mustafa, I keep calling him that even though he no longer has it, Ali pins Andrade with the 450 splash because after you almost brain Daniel Bryan with a knee doing the 054, they take away your more visually impressive finisher.
Yeah, well, that happens with everyone not named, not who isn't some big name. I mean, the same thing happened to Tommy.
Well, if you look at it, the same thing happened to Ricochet, too.
True. Yeah. Oh, I was wondering why he's not using the 630 anymore.
He mushed one too many person with the senton on that 630, so that's why they have him back to the shooting star.
No, that's disappointing.
It's a pretty shooting star, don't get me wrong, but it's not nearly as visually impressive as the 630 is.
I mean, to be fair, it may be a little better on his back, though. I mean, look how Jeff is now.
Well, I was about to say, too. Then again, watch them prove me wrong and have Ricochet bust out a 630 at Money in the Bank. What do I know?
Yeah, maybe they'll allow him to use it for bigger matches, hopefully.
I'm just some mark talking about it on a podcast. What do I know? Regardless, what did you think of the main event?
I mean, it was decent. Nothing too crazy. Pretty much just like we talked about, just a showcase for the 4 guys that are going to be in the Money in the Bank.
This was a GMSI match.
What would that be?
Get my in.
Yep.
Because they knew they didn't have a whole lot of time to tell anything resembling a story, so they just came hot and heavy with the action down the end. Mm-hmm. It's cool when they can do this and they can kind of let go in these spot fests, but realistically, at the end of these all, it's not going to mean anything in the grand scheme of things. It's cool that Ali got to win here, but if you guys think that you guys think that Ali is winning Money in the Bank, then I got another thing coming for you.
Yeah.
I feel like Kane's going to show up and win Money in the Bank on May 19th. Sorry, bad flashbacks. Post-match, Randy Orton hits Finn Balor with an RKO. He tries to get Ali as well, but Ali is able to counter him. Orton escapes the ring and slithers, pun intended, up the ramp. We officially announced that Carmella and Ember are the final 2 participants after having the segment where Mandy and Sonya kiss each other's ass backstage. There's a joke there that I'm pretty sure I'd get kicked off the W2M Network if I make, so I won't, so we'll just move on.
Eric would.
Yes, and if you want to hear Eric make those jokes, listen to the kickoff. Thanks for popping me on air, you jackass.
You're welcome.
Kevin Owens show is your main event segment here. It is scheduled for 1 promo.
1 promo.
Thank you. Where Owens is going to have Xavier Woods as his guest. And he does. A 6-inch.
In action figure form.
And his buddy Big E as well, because they came as a battle pack, which credit to Owens for getting the branding correct. They actually are called battle packs.
Well, I mean, one of those
He
guys.
does have-
I'm sure he buys them for his kid and stuff. So
I was gonna say, yeah, that would actually make sense because I feel like Owens is either buying them for his kid or he has an in at Mattel and he gets the figures that Owen wants.
Exactly.
It's entirely possible those may have been Owens figures.
Yeah.
Owen as in the son, not Owens as in the wrestler Kevin.
Could have been both. Because Kevin seems like the type that would play with action figures.
Only if he's the champion.
Yes, of course.
Of course. Kofi Kingston comes out, however, and him and Owens get into a huge brawl that goes around the ringside area until Owens rakes the eyes and runs like a scalded dog, trademark Jim Ross, through the crowd as SmackDown goes off of the air. A little bit more effective than the opening segment, but between the two of them there, you see a little bit of the fire that you need to see from Kofi here. But with him on the microphone, not able to back it up through his words, it makes it difficult for me to take him seriously as champion.
I mean, they still have a few weeks. This is the first true week that they've had where this feud has been starting. Pretty much ever since Money in the Bank up until this point, it's still been pretty much the honeymoon phase for his title run. Now is where things need to pick up steam and he needs to start getting better. I think he will. I think he certainly has the ability to. We'll just have to wait and see how things go moving forward.
The biggest issue is that Kofi has never been much of a promo guy.
True.
He's never been somebody who gets a lot of the time to talk. He's never been somebody who's been able to get across his emotions and his state of mind through his character. He's always been somebody who's impressed, oohed, and awed on what he's able to do inside of the ring. That is the biggest challenge facing Kofi Kingston right now is will he be able to talk people into wanting to see this match beyond the fact of Kevin Owens turned on the New Day, that son of a bitch.
I mean, that's all you really need, though, I feel, is, Kevin Owens seemed like he was turning a new leaf, and then he went back to his old ways and betrayed Kofi and Xavier in the process.
But Kofi has to be able to talk people into the arena for wanting to see Kofi get his revenge, not just on the basis of Kevin Owens is turning, but on the basis of they're going to be in there cheering on Kofi as he tries to get said revenge.
True. I mean, I think
it was a great story in front of 80,000 people at WrestleMania in New York City. However, those are wrestling-crazed fans in New York City at WrestleMania. You're going to Hartford, freaking Connecticut for Money in the Bank. These aren't going to be the same fans. You actually have to get them invested in the match rather than just the sheer mass of humanity.
True. I think, if need be, I mean, yes, you would like to have Kofi talk a decent bit, but I think Xavier can also do a lot of the heavy lifting on the mic for this as well.
While I don't disagree that Xavier's capable on the microphone, that does Kofi no favors as champion when he can't cut his own promo.
2 words for you. Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, but I think Lesnar's visually impressive enough that
True.
and was booked dominantly enough that he didn't really need to say a whole lot.
True, I'll give you that, but I mean, there have been others that may not have been the greatest on the mic who have gotten managers to get them over.
That officially brings us to the end of the April 30th episode of SmackDown, Brandon. Scale of 1 to 10.
I'll give it a 6.5. Some decent segments. The Firefly Funhouse is probably the best thing going in WWE right now. Interesting to see where it'll go. But a lot of the other stuff kind of dragged. And, it did what it needed to do to progress things, but there wasn't a ton to really write home about on this episode.
Okay. I want everybody listening at home right now, once you finally get a chance to listen to this, once it gets posted, to pause this episode right here and go back and listen to last week's episode of the SmackDown Live review, where you will hear Brandon crapping all over the Firefly Funhouse, wondering what the hell that was, and me explaining to him that you have to give them a chance and see where it's going, because if it's going where we think it might be going, It's a story that can be told very subtly, but very effectively.
And I'll admit, I was wrong. It's grown on me.
And now that you've come back to listening to this episode of the SmackDown Live Review, I'm giving this week's episode of SmackDown a 5.
Oh, wow, you're lower than I am.
In fairness, I gave Raw a 4. Just an off week for WWE television. None of the matches were as big of a home run as they usually hit here on SmackDown. The main event tag match was the best of the. Well, I guess Becky and Bayley was pretty good. The main event tag match was the best of the 4, and it only lasted 7 minutes. Kofi Kingston's inaugural promo as champion, where he's actually giving something to work with, I'm going to be honest with you, to me, he struck out.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't effective to me. I liked the closing segment more than I liked the opening segment, but that was carried more by Kevin than it was Kofi.
Mm-hmm.
And there are those that are going to say that the use of the action figures and the props and stuff like that are going to do neither of these men any favors, and they wouldn't be entirely wrong.
Yeah.
To me, this seemed like a rare miss from the Blue brand, but I feel like they're capable of better.
Do you think this is the case because, I mean, it's not just this week, the last few weeks have been like this. Do you think this is a case of, like, WrestleMania hangover where now their main season is done and they're just kind of on a holding pattern until the summer?
I think it is an absolutely massive mistake to have Money in the Bank as the next pay-per-view after WrestleMania.
Agreed.
Because Money in the Bank is a pay-per-view that you build towards, that people get excited for. There's a reason we call it a Big 5 nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Because Money in the Bank, over the course of its existence, ever since it came into pay-per-view existence back in 2010, and obviously the signature 2011 event with the CM Punk John Cena match, has stood out as a go-to pay-per-view for huge happenings or breakthrough matches in the WWE.
And not to mention that you're basically giving someone a title shot.
By rushing into that right after WrestleMania and having the superstar shakeup, throwing everything into flux as well, so you don't have time to build these people on their new shows, you're taking away the booking potential and the storyline potential that Money in the Bank could create.
Agreed.
What's your one-word review for this episode of SmackDown, Brandon?
I'll say lackluster. Like we talked about, a lot of things just kind of fell flat. There wasn't really a ton going for SmackDown here other than Firefly Funhouse.
And that originally aired on Raw.
Mm-hmm. That's a dual-branded thing right now. So we don't even know where Bray's gonna go.
Until they decide what brand Bray's most needed on.
Exactly.
I hate to use this word to describe a show. I absolutely hate to use this word to describe a show, but this is the one word that sprung into mind for me. You ready?
Okay.
There.
Just there. Yep.
It was just there.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a fancier way to say that, complacency.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Which I think, I talked about it just before. I think it really is that, like, where WrestleMania is over, the main show is over. Now we can kind of just sit back and not really have to do anything.
All right, couple of quick things to discuss before we get out of here.
Yep.
One, the return to Saudi Arabia is officially announced for June 7th. We knew it was going to happen. Does that make it any easier to stomach?
No, the big news in that regard is that apparently Goldberg is coming back.
Good. He'll come back and not put over anybody else on the current roster again. Good for him.
Well, we don't know that. We don't know who he's going to be facing.
In case you can't tell, I don't especially care for Bill Goldberg.
We don't know who he's going to be facing. He could be.
It doesn't matter.
And
would you like to? Oh wait, here, do me a solid here, Brandon. I want you to guess. Okay.
Okay.
How many clean jobs do you think Bill Goldberg has done in his WWE career?
Are we including WCW?
No, just his WWE run between when he first was with the company back in 2003 to when he came back this last year to feud with Lesnar. How many times was Goldberg's shoulders pinned to the mat in the WWE for a 3 count?
I'll say 3.
1.
Oh, just 1 against Lesnar? That's it?
He also lost a triple threat. He was not pinned in that triple threat. Because that's how he lost the title in a triple threat with Triple H and Kane.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Goldberg suffered 1 clean pinfall loss in the WWE in the 20 months that he was with the company.
That's crazy.
I have 0 interest in Bo Goldberg.
Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, I have a feeling that the Saudi show is going to be where Brock comes back and probably get his title back. Unless he decides to go over to SmackDown, and then that's where they'll have Kofi drop the title to lessen the blow in terms of the crowd reaction.
Yeah, but I think that would be a mistake putting Roman and Brock back on the same show.
I agree, but this is WWE. They don't care as long as they're making that money.
That's fair. A couple of other things to discuss here. New commentator for NXT starting shortly. Did you hear this story?
I saw it. I didn't see who it was, though.
Percy Watson is out. Beth Phoenix is in.
Oh, okay. So the second female full-time commentator.
Upgrade.
What?
I said upgrade. Anybody who knows me knows that I absolutely despise Percy Watson as an announcer. Can't stand him. He adds nothing. Beth Phoenix has actually impressed me with her commentary on the Mae Young Classic. Beth Phoenix impressed me with her commentary at Evolution. Beth was really good during the Women's Rumble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll see how she does.
Beth could actually add something to the NXT Women's division by being a voice for them on commentary. And what better way to help these women in NXT test their chops to see if they're ready for the main roster than by giving them an opportunity to feud or face somebody like a Beth at the house show circuit for NXT.
Very true.
Third and finally, preliminary Money in the Bank favorites. Brandon, who you got? Who wins the men? Who wins the women?
For the men, like I said before, I think it's going to probably be Andrade. For the women, just because she's on a hot streak right now, I'll say it's going to be a toss-up between either Naomi or Ember.
I think Naomi needs it more than Ember does because they've never really given Ember an opportunity at a main event level run.
True.
Whereas Naomi had that opportunity on SmackDown, and while she was champion for, what was it, like 4 months?
Yeah.
There was no real definitive moment during her reign.
Outside of her win.
In Orlando at WrestleMania, yes. For the men, who I think should get it and who I think is going to are 2 different people.
Okay.
Who would I personally give the briefcase to? Andrade. Who do I think is going to get the briefcase? Drew McIntyre.
I could see that.
And the reason I say that I don't think McIntyre needs it is because it goes back to what I said at the very start of this episode. Drew McIntyre is a main event player in waiting.
Mm-hmm.
He is somebody who, as I said, you could put in the main events tomorrow and the fans would be like, okay, I could see that. That checks. That's cool. Bring it on. Andrade needs that bump to get him to the next level. McIntyre does it.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I could see them giving it to McIntyre and then having him use fiendish tactics in order to cash in order to establish him as a full-time heel on Monday Night Raw, which, while I may not like it, I guess makes sense given the high-level heels over on the Red brand nowadays.
I mean, he already is a full-on heel, though. I don't see how that would make him even more of a heel.
He's kind of feuding with Baron now, which in turn made him... Remember, he punched Baron in the face on Raw on Monday.
That is true.
And if you punch Baron Corbin in the face, you're pretty much a babyface. You're pretty much a babyface by default.
True. Fair enough.
Whereas AJ Styles and Seth Rollins could beat the crap out of each other for 20 minutes, and there comes McIntyre to steal their title.
Fair enough. That would actually be an interesting little thing where, like, you know, these guys are having a 5-star classic match for, like, you know, 20, 25, 30 minutes, and then Baron comes out, or not Baron, Drew comes out to ruin it all.
And just basically inserts himself like Seth did in the Brock and Roman match at 31.
Mm-hmm.
Or alternatively, waits until the match finishes, and then thus only has to challenge one of them.
Yep.
Do you have anything to add to this conversation of wrestling news and notes?
Well, I already mentioned the whole Goldberg thing.
That was part of the Saudi Arabia.
Yep. Dean Ambrose has officially gone back to Jon Moxley. Get ready for chaos to ensue.
So if you believe the rumors, the dice in the videos to the 2 and the 5
equals
are a hint that he's showing up at Double or Nothing. I don't see it.
Well,
I don't see it. I don't think Ambrose is going to AEW. I think Ambrose is going to want someplace where he can pursue more creative endeavors. Mox is a deathmatch guy. He was a deathmatch guy before he got signed.
But I think AEW would be willing to do some of that stuff in order to bring that fan base back into a TV company.
Yes, but to the level that Ambrose or Mox or whatever you want to call him, Moxley now, again, technically, would want to go, I don't know.
I think so. It may not quite be to, you know, CZW type levels, but I think as long as they had a more aggressive, more hardcore friendly style, I think he'd be perfectly fine with it. I mean, the reason why he flopped so hard in WWE, relatively speaking, is because you have CZW on one extreme, but then you have WWE on the exact opposite extreme. WWE, you are so handcuffed and so limited in what you can do on a hardcore level, both in terms of your promos, in terms of matches, in terms of everything, because of how it is now, that he was completely shackled. And it kind of showed in that whole vignette that he created. So I think AEW, if he were to go there, we've seen it before with Kenny. I think they'd be willing to at least toe that line close enough that he would have more creative freedom.
We'll see what happens.
Yep.
That's all I can say.
Yep.
We will see what happens with regards to Mox. We'll see where he lands. We'll see whether or not this means that he's going back home, back to CCW, where it really started for him. Mm-hmm. Because the promotion that he actually broke in with, to my knowledge, doesn't run full-time anymore in HWA. Or if it's just kind of a tease for something to come down the line. Oh, and for those of you thinking that CM Punk will be showing up at Double or Nothing, apparently he has an MMA show that same night, so it doesn't look like that's going to happen.
Fair enough.
We'll see. I mean, obviously Swerves could be on, and we know how much people love to work the sheets these days. We'll see if it's one of those situations.
And we know how much guys like using other obligations as ways to swerve people, like Jericho.
Well, look at Ronda Rousey.
Mm-hmm.
Argentina filming a movie tonight at the Royal Rumble.
Exactly.
So it's not like it's beyond the realm of possibility for people to do that.
Yep.
I think that's going to about do it for us, Brandon. We've been here for an hour.
Yeah.
Ready to wrap it up?
Yeah.
Why don't you tell people what's coming this weekend?
This weekend we've got the draft review of the kickoff, covering all the draft highlights, talking about who your biggest busts were, who the biggest winners were, biggest losers, all of that good stuff. So be sure to tune into that.
Okay, before everybody freaks out when you listen here, don't worry. We will do a section of biggest bust not named Daniel Jones. We promise.
Because I think that's all of our number one bust.
So don't worry. We will go into other busts. In addition, we'll talk steals, we'll talk sleepers, and we'll talk what rookies we feel could have the biggest impact in the 2019 NFL season. That'll be on the NFL Draft Review edition of The Kickoff here on the W2M Network. Brandon, people can listen to you and Cedric Cologne as well here on the W2M Network discussing Monday Night Raw. Tell them
yes,
about that.
Yes, they can. We talked about this past week's Raw. Talked about all the goodies and the baddies. Lots of bad stuff, unfortunately, as I'm sure Harry can attest to.
Serious, what was your score for Raw?
My score, I was generous. I also gave it a 6.5.
That's way too high.
I agree. I know this.
What did Cedric give it?
He gave it a 6, I think.
Yeah, none of the guys on the reaction were above a 4. It was rough sledding.
It was. It really was.
Woof. Eventually, Brandon's going to watch pay-per-views, too.
Yes, eventually.
Not sure when, because we've been talking about it for 6 months now. I feel your pain, Jason. And how the war was won will eventually be waged here on the W2M Network as well. But for now, for Brandon Biskobing, I'm Harry Broadhurst, thanking you for listening to the Wrestling to the Max SmackDown Live review for April 30th, 2019. You can find the W2M Network online at W2Mnet.com, in addition to finding us on all of your favorite podcast listening services, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spreaker, Podbean, CastBox. Hey, Brandon, guess what?
Spotify is here.
Yeah, and Glacier would at least show up for how the war was won.
Dick.
He's that too. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you guys next week here on the Wrestling to the Max SmackDown Live review, part of the W2M Network.